Hi, welcome back to Bookworm. Today's book is one that made me pause in a very uncomfortable way. Not because it said something shocking, but because it said something quietly true. Most of us live as if life is something we'll start fully enjoying later, later when things calm down, later when we have more time, later when we feel more secure, more ready, more settled. And without realizing it, later slowly turns into a habit. Die with Zero isn't really about money. It's about time, energy, and the way we keep postponing the parts of life we care about most. What stayed with me while reading this book was how reasonable postponement feels. It doesn't look like fear, it looks like responsibility. You tell yourself, you're being smart, you're planning ahead, you're doing the right thing. But underneath that, there's often a quiet voice asking, what if I'm waiting too long? If you're someone who works hard, plans carefully, and tries to do things the right way, this book might feel uncomfortably familiar. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you might be protecting the future at the cost of the present. As you watch, I don't want you to judge yourself or make big decisions. Just notice what comes up for you. What have you been saving for later? What moments keep getting delayed? What experiences feel important but never urgent? Before we continue, if you enjoy thoughtful, honest book conversations like this, please like the video and subscribe to Bookworm. It really helps the channel grow and it lets me know this kind of content resonates with you. All right, let's step into the ideas behind Die with Zero and why waiting too long can quietly become the biggest cost of all.
Today, we are going to talk about a book with a title that is, well, pretty confronting, Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. It's all about how to get the most you possibly can from your money and, way more importantly, from your life. But what if I told you that just about everything you've ever learned about saving for the future might be, well, kind of wrong? What if the most responsible thing you could do is actually spend more and live more, starting right now?
Right out of the gate, the author Bill Perkins hits us with this one simple question. And this question, it really just cuts through all the noise. It reframes a story we've all been told since we were kids, and honestly, it's the perfect place for us to start.
All right, so let's talk about this. You know the fable, right? The ant works its tail off all summer long, saving up food for the winter. And meanwhile, you've got the grasshopper just singing, playing, and living in the moment. Of course, when winter hits, the ant is all cozy and secure, and the grasshopper is, well, you know. It's a story that's been hammered into our heads our whole lives. It's supposed to teach us about hard work and delaying gratification. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the real tragedy in that story isn't the grasshopper, but the ant, who never learned to live?
Yeah, from day one, we're taught to be the ant. It's the right thing to do. So what do? We put our heads down, we work crazy hours, we climb whatever ladder is in front of us, we save, we invest, and we constantly delay gratification for some magical future where we'll finally get to relax. It's like we're on autopilot, you know? Just accumulate, accumulate, accumulate for a tomorrow that isn't even guaranteed. And this is the path that leads straight to burnout, to feeling emotionally numb, like you're just going through the motions, always preparing for a life that you're forgetting to actually live. Does that sound at all familiar?
And that leads us right back to this really big, kind of scary question. If you're always the ant, constantly preparing for winter, when do you get to enjoy the summer? See, the tragedy isn't just about the grasshopper. It's that the ant never really lived. I mean, sure, the ant survived, but did the ant thrive? This is the big challenge the book lays out for us. It forces us to look at this deep, unexamined fear we all have that we're just saving up our lives for later. A later that might not even look the way we think it will.
So the book reframes your entire life as this big optimization problem. And it's not just about money. Not at all. To really live your best life, you've got to balance three essential and often competing resources. Just think of them as your three main currencies in life: your health, your money, and your time. The problem? They are almost never, ever aligned.
Okay, so let's look at the first phase. When we're young, maybe in our 20s, we are absolutely flush with two of these currencies. We've got health, right? Boundless energy. Our bodies can handle anything. We can hike a mountain and then go out dancing all night. And we've got time. So much time. Fewer big responsibilities, long weekends that feel like they could last forever. You could throw a backpack on and travel across a continent with almost no money. But that's the catch, isn't it?
The one thing we don't have is money. Our earning power is at its lowest. So we've got the energy and the freedom, but we don't have the cash to fund the big dreams.
And then you hit midlife, and the whole equation just flips on its head. Our careers are going, we're likely in our peak earning years, we finally have the money to do all the things we dreamed about, we can afford that amazing trip, but what's missing? Time. Time suddenly becomes the most precious thing in the world. Between the mortgage, the demanding job, the kids, our calendars are a nightmare. We're just running on a treadmill so exhausted that we don't even have the brain space to think about what would actually make us happy. We have the money, but we have absolutely no time or energy to use it.
And that brings us to our later years. Retirement. Suddenly, the time crunch is over. We have all the free time in the world. And because we spent a lifetime being the perfect ant, we probably have the money we so carefully saved up. But the third currency, health, is now fading. It's just a fact of life. Our energy isn't what it used to be. Our bodies have limits. The money is there, the time is there, but our ability to really enjoy them in an active way is gone. That trek through the Himalayas you always wanted to do, that physically demanding adventure, it might just not be in the cards anymore.
So here's the bottom line. It's the central problem of our entire lives. We almost never have health, money, and time all at the same time. We spend our youth trading our time for a little bit of money. We spend our middle age trading our precious time for a lot more money. And then we spend our old age wishing we could trade all that money for just a little bit of the health and energy we had back in our youth. The real game of life is figuring out how to navigate these mismatched seasons with intention.
So if that's the problem, what in the world is the solution? Well, the book introduces a really powerful shift in how we think. It's not about being reckless with your money. It's about investing differently. It's about this incredible concept called the memory dividend.
Let's break this down because this idea can literally change your life. A memory dividend is the return on investment you get from an experience. Think about it. A new phone or a new car starts losing value the second you buy it. But a memory? The value of a great memory can actually grow over time. Think back to a favorite family trip or a concert you went to years ago. The trip itself was fun, sure, but the real value comes later. It's in the stories you tell over and over, the inside jokes that still make you laugh, that warm feeling you get when you see an old photo. That is the memory dividend, paying you back again and again for the rest of your life.
This really gets to the core of it. We're taught to think that the goal is to accumulate money, but that's not it. Money isn't the goal, it's just the tool. The real goal is to accumulate a lifetime of rich, meaningful experiences. At the end of the day, when you look back, your life won't be measured by your final bank balance. It'll be measured by the sum of your memories. Money is just the fuel. So the question is, are you using that fuel to go somewhere amazing, or are you just letting it sit in the tank?
Let's try to visualize this. Imagine you take a trip to Europe. You spend a week there, you have a great time. Let's say in the moment, that experience gives you 1,000 experience points. This bar right here represents that immediate joy. It was a fantastic trip. You loved it. That, by itself, is incredibly valuable.
But that's just the beginning. Now look what happens over time. A few years later, a photo from that trip pops up on your phone and you get this huge smile on your face. You tell a story about it at a dinner party and everyone has a great laugh. Each of those moments is a payout. It's a memory dividend. And as you can see on this chart, those dividends stack up. They compound year after year. Over a lifetime, the total joy you get from that one single experience can be way, way more than the initial 1,000 points. You see, you didn't just buy a vacation, you made an investment in a lifetime of happiness. Now this all sounds really good, right? But there's a huge psychological barrier that stops almost all of us from actually doing it. It's this deep, primal fear that the book calls the fear of zero. It's the fear of running out of money. And this quote from the author is so important because it tells you you're not alone. It's not some crazy, irrational thing to feel. I mean, nobody wants to end up with nothing. The fear comes from a very real desire for security. But when that fear is unchecked, it can become so powerful that it paralyzes us. It keeps us stuck in ant mode forever, long after we've saved more than enough for winter. It makes us oversave and underlive. We sacrifice guaranteed happiness today for a future security that's never a sure thing.
So why do we do this? Let's break it down. First, our brains are just wired for survival. That instinct is way stronger than our instinct to thrive. We are biologically programmed to avoid pain more than we are to seek joy. It's why buying insurance feels more responsible than booking a trip. Second, we save for a future version of ourselves that we picture as being, well, just like us, but older.
We forget that our 85-year-old self will have totally different desires and, more importantly, totally different physical abilities. And finally, and this is huge, we don't think about retirement in phases. There are the go-go years, right after you retire, when you're active and healthy. Then come the slow-go years, when you start to slow down. And eventually, the no-go years, when health problems really limit what you can do. By saving everything for the very end, we often leave a huge pile of money for a time in our lives when we can't even use it. It's like saving all your airline miles for a time when you're no longer able to fly.
Okay, so how do we actually fight this fear? How do we start living more intentionally? We need a tool, something practical to turn these ideas into a real plan. And the book gives us a simple but really profound exercise. It's called time bucketing.
The first step is to just look at your life differently. Not as one long, endless road, but as a series of chapters or seasons. Just seeing your life laid out like this, in these 10-year buckets, it can be a real wake-up call. It makes you realize that each decade has a beginning and an end, that time isn't infinite, and that the window of opportunity for certain kinds of experiences, that's finite too. So how do you do it? It's actually pretty simple. First, you just dream a little. Brainstorm all the experiences you really, truly want to have in your life. Don't hold back. Then, and this is the most important part, you start dragging and dropping those experiences into the time buckets where they actually make sense. You know, that physically brutal trek in the mountains, that probably needs to go in an earlier bucket. Spending a few months helping out with young grandkids, that's probably for a later one. This forces you to be realistic about timing. And the final step is the most critical. Start planning for the bucket you're in right now, today.
And I really want to emphasize this point. This is not a bucket list. A bucket list is something you scramble to do at the very end. It's reactive. This time bucket plan, it's proactive. It's a strategy to make sure you don't keep postponing joy. It's a plan for living a full life through every single season, not just trying to play catch-up right before the credits roll. It's about designing your life with intention, chapter by chapter.
And all of this brings us to the ultimate goal, which, by the way, isn't to literally have $0 in your account when you die. The goal is to die with zero regrets. It's about totally changing our definition of what it means to live a rich life.
Just look at this comparison. It puts everything into perspective. The traditional path, the ant's path, says richness is all about accumulation. The goal is to maximize your net worth. The measure of your success is what's on your final bank statement. But the die with zero way of thinking offers a totally different, more human definition. Here, the goal is to maximize your life experiences. The measure of your wealth is the richness of your memories. And the focus shifts from just accumulating to actually living with intention. Which one of those sounds like a richer life to you?
So we end up right back where we started, with a question for you. If your life is really just the sum total of all your experiences, then every single day is a chance to add something to that equation. You're the one writing your life story. So the only thing left to ask is, what are you going to add to the equation? Not next year, not when you retire. What will you add today?
Welcome back. Before you move on, I want to slow things down for just a moment, not to push you into action, but to bring the focus back to you. If this book stayed with you, it's probably because it touched something tender, that awareness that time isn't unlimited, that energy changes, that some experiences don't wait. One thing I really appreciate about Die with Zero is that it doesn't shame planning or saving or being careful. It simply reminds us that life doesn't happen all at once, and it doesn't happen equally at every age. There are seasons for certain experiences, moments that matter because of when they happen, not just that they happen. Waiting isn't always wrong, but waiting without intention can slowly turn into regret. You don't need to overhaul your life after watching this. You don't need to spend money recklessly or force experiences. Sometimes the shift starts with something much quieter, asking yourself whether later is a thoughtful choice or just a default response. If this video made you pause, let that pause matter. Awareness often comes before change. Before you go, if this conversation helped you reflect in a deeper way, please like the video and subscribe to Bookworm. It helps the channel grow and it helps me keep creating content like this. And if you feel like sharing, I'd really love to hear from you in the comments. What is one experience you've been postponing, not because you don't want it, but because it never feels like the right time? Thank you for spending this time here. Take what resonated, leave what didn't, and be gentle with yourself as you think about what truly matters. I'll see you in the next one.